evening, everyone, and welcome to MPC. Bienvenidos. Este es tu casa. This is your home. Okay? This is important for me to share as the Associate Dean of Instruction STEM to let you know that we want you to feel at home here, and we want you to succeed at MPC. And part of that is bringing diverse STEM professionals to see you, to talk to you, and for you to realize that you can do the same. And so before we start this exciting program, I want to thank a few folks and a few programs for making this happen. I want to thank Dean Bradley from the Student Equity and Achievement Program for her support. I want to thank Dr. Kelly Fletes and Jacinto Salazar from the SOAR program for the first year experience. I want to thank HSI-STEM and their office and their team for making this happen. But without a doubt, I really want to thank the STEM department and the STEM faculty. If the STEM faculty are here, can you please stand up, please, and be acknowledged? It's really important to know that these faculty members dedicate their time, their commitment, and more than anything, their love for science to share with you and to share with their students. And as they're with you day in and day out, please know that. Because when I hear your stories and I hear about how the faculty mentors have basically encouraged you to succeed, that's what comes out. So please understand that we're here to support you and we're going to be there for you. Now, for the college students that are here, for the middle school students that are here, and for the community members that are joining us today, I want to welcome Alexis Scott-Bosler here to MPC. When Dean Van Julen and I saw her TED Talk this summer, we were stunned, and stunned in a way that we said, this is exactly what the HSI-STEM program wants. We want speakers to speak from the heart, to share their journey, and to really show the students that they too can succeed. So without further ado, I want to welcome Alexis Scott-Bosler to MPC.
See, I'm a former college professor, so when I see students come in, I have to wait until everybody gets seated. Can you hear me? Okay. So the first thing I'm going to be talking to you today about breaking the curse of invisibility is going to be basically a story about how I got into the STEM field that I've gotten into, giving you some background about myself, some background on what I think of the curse, and then the most important thing is how do you break that curse of invisibility. So before I start, I just want to thank you for inviting me to come out and speak. This is my heart, this is my passion. I really enjoy talking about STEM to young people, college students, high school students, middle school students. This is just what I enjoy doing. So thank you very much for inviting me out to come and speak to you guys. Thank you, Mr. Herbert Cortez, for having the initiative just to call me. He just called me out of the blue, and we had a discussion, and we just started kind of communicating and talking about STEM and having me come out, and I really appreciate your hospitality and everything that you've done to bring me here, and the tour and everything. It's been great. It's been great. So I want to thank you for that. Thank you very much. So we're going to get started. We're going to get started with my backstory and kind of what leads me here today. So how did I get here? It all started in the summer of 2017. I received an email from a TED Talk coordinator at one of the local colleges in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And she called me emailed me, because she saw a book that I'd done, actually my first book on STEM. And I was in an article in the Huffington Post, and so she saw the article. And she thought I would be very good to be a presenter at the TED Talk. And she asked me to come and speak about cybersecurity. So that's my field. And so I told her no, because I think I am much more than cybersecurity. So I offered her an alternative to speak to something else. And at that moment, at that time, I really was not a speaker. I was an educator. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy talking to students. I enjoy educating. And she wanted me to do a TED Talk. And I'm like, oh my goodness. But then I was trying to come out of my box. I did not like, so don't call me a speaker. If you call me an educator, I'm good. Don't call me a speaker yet. But I was trying to come out of my box, so I told her yes really quickly before I chickened out. And so it was approximately 500 people. The actual TED Talk was in February of 2018. 500 people, a huge audience, kind of the biggest audience I'd spoken to ever. And I was just so nervous. But I knew the story that I offered her was one that people needed to hear. So it was a 12-minute speech. I was talking about being an African American female in the STEM field, and in my mind, it was a success. Even though I had the initial nervousness, even though I had the initial hesitation, I had so many people, women, men, young, old, come up to me afterwards. I had a built-in audience that I didn't even know existed. So I did that TED Talk in February of 2018, and so now it is 2023. I am still getting feedback from people that go and pull up that TED Talk and just amazed at the positive things that have come from that. Today, 5 years later, that was in 2018, and I'm still getting people that want to hear about my journey in STEM. So, to young men, I go to talk cybersecurity at high schools, robotics clubs, they want me to come and speak. So it all started with that TED Talk that I did not want to do because I was so nervous. And then every group that I've had the privilege of speaking with would always come up to me afterwards talking about invisibility and not being seen. Those who I didn't even think could be invisible or could relate to my story, and that is the story that I'm going to talk to you today. So I'm going to start that speech, the speech today the way I started off at the 2018 TED Talk. Okay, so the way I started it said, look at me, see me, tell me, what do you see? And so I'm an educator, you guys have to participate. So that's a question, that's not rhetorical. Look at me, see me, tell me, what do you see? Okay. You can talk, it's okay. I won't be offended. Yes? Mm-hmm.
You're taller than me.
Only because I have on heels. Passionate, okay. Powerful. So that's how I started that slide. And then I said, this is who I am. I am a mathematician. I'm an engineering section manager. I'm an engineering department manager. I'm a cybersecurity department manager. I'm an author of 5+ books. I'm a mentor. I'm a team leader. I'm an analyst. I'm a computer programmer. I'm a presenter at cybersecurity conferences. I'm a contributor to books on cybersecurity. I have a cybersecurity certification. I'm a featured alumni at both my undergraduate school of Spelman College and my graduate school of University of North Texas. I am a NSBE DFW Hidden Figure of 2017. I'm a Woman of the Year. I am a speaker at several different high schools. I'm a STEM motivator. I'm an educational services entrepreneur. I'm a former triple E, now I'm a quadruple E. I'll explain what that is later. I am all of these things. But when you look at me, is that what you see? Now I ask you, think about it. How do others see you? Are you being seen? Or are you invisible? What are the limitations of how others see you? Do you under-project to hide, or do you over-project to disguise? Today, I'm going to educate you about what I did to break my curse of invisibility and what I believe others can do to break their curse of invisibility. So before I get into invisibility, the invisibility curse, I want to give you a little bit of detail about my background. Okay? So I've had a love and a gift for numbers and puzzles since I was very young. My great-great-grandmother used to have this big puzzle book with crossword puzzles and search words. I don't know if you guys know about that. I'm aging myself. But anyway, I used to just sit like in the corner and just do puzzles all day. I've always had a gift for numbers. I always liked putting things together. I've always liked figuring things out. So early in my career, I wondered what I could do with a math degree outside of academia. What I realized is mathematics is just putting things together, figuring out puzzle pieces. That's what a proof is. I like doing proofs. I like putting the steps together to get to the final answers. What steps do you need to do to get to that answer? There's always a different way to get to your answer, but one thing I love about math is the answer is completely objective. So you might have 5 or 10 different paths, but 1 + 1 = 2, you know. Okay, originally I wanted to be a certified public accountant, a CPA, because I like money, and I thought that's all certified public accountants did was count money. So that's what I wanted to do. So in addition to my math degree, I minored in business. After I attended graduate school, though, my thought process changed, and being a CPA didn't excite me as much as I thought it would. So I had to reconsider my career goals. So my first for real job was working at MIT in their Lincoln Laboratory in Lexington, Massachusetts, as an analyst. And there is where I learned to computer code and program software. So for 4 years, I threw myself into learning and became really proficient in computer programming and developing code to analyze data. This involved me using mathematical methods to solving skills to figure out and create code that would model the radar data and to help me predict patterns for my and my senior levels hypotheses, and to provide a thought-out solution. I looked at computer programming like solving a puzzle. What I figured out was once I understood how to code, my first basic language, you know, hello world. I'm aging myself again, so Fortran, assembly, COBOL, ones and zeros. What I figured out is once I could learn one computer code, it was easy for me to learn the other ones. So from Fortran, I figured out how to do Unix shell scripting, Bash code, C shells, C, C++, Java. I just kept going once I figured out one code. And now as the more popular languages like Python, I'm starting to kind of figure that out because basically the syntax is all the same. So that is what I did at MIT Lincoln Laboratory. But even though I enjoyed working at MIT Lincoln Laboratory, I felt something was lacking. So what I felt that was lacking was I wasn't teaching. That is what I did throughout my undergraduate career. That's how I made money. I used to tutor. I worked in the math lab, so that's how I got my extra money, and I missed it. When I was in grad school, I assisted my professor by teaching his classes. So as a grad school student, I was teaching calculus, 1, 2, 3, differential equations, and I missed the interaction with the students. So after my first year at Lincoln Laboratories, in the second year, I started looking for adjunct faculty positions. And so at a lot of the colleges in the area in Massachusetts. And so I found one with North Shore Community College. And then a new routine began. So what I would do is I would do engineering and analyst programming work during the day. And in the evenings and on the weekends, I'd be a college professor. So I enjoyed that setup so much that I continued it for the next almost 20 years. The jobs and the companies where I worked engineering changed. The colleges where I taught changed. However, I always had engineering during the day and teaching as a professor in the evenings and on the weekends. I had so much energy. I don't have that energy now. I don't have that now. So while I was doing that routine, I became involved in a new field. So I'm gonna tell you this, back then, there was no such thing as cybersecurity. That's a new term. Back when I started, it was called information assurance or information technology. And so basically what cybersecurity is, does everybody know kind of the tenet? Good, everybody knows the tenet. It's based on CIA, and I'm not talking about Central Intelligence Agency. I'm talking confidentiality, integrity, and availability. That's kind of the crux of what cybersecurity is. So what I've done and what I do is I make sure that systems are in place such that that triad of confidentiality, making sure information is protected, integrity, making sure information is not changed, and availability, making sure the information is available on all the systems, primarily in defense. So a lot of my cybersecurity work has been working in the defense companies for the government. So I started out as an individual contributor. Then I started out as a team leader in cybersecurity. Then I became a section manager in cybersecurity. Then I became a department manager in cybersecurity. So that's kind of the progression on the engineering side. So while I'm doing all of that, what did I say? I'm doing engineering during the day. I'm a professor in the evenings and on the weekends. Someone found out that I taught math. And so a lot of my coworkers had kids that were struggling in mathematics, and they needed help that they were not getting. So guess what? I started tutoring my coworkers' kids. And then it was word of mouth. Their friends' kids were having problems, and my coworkers would refer me to their friends and kids. So I started tutoring their kids. Then what happened? Friends, kids, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm tutoring friends' kids, friends' kids, families' friends' kids. I'm doing all this tutoring. So let's recap. In the morning, I'm doing engineering. In the evenings and the weekends, I'm a professor, so I'm teaching math classes. And any of those spare time throughout the day, I am tutoring. And so what happened is it grew so much that I just started a business. And that's how I did my educational. So I just created a business that started out just tutoring, just math tutoring. And then what happened was I'd get a student, well, can you tutor physics? No, but I can find someone else that can tutor physics. I'm having problems in English. Can you help me write? I can help you, but I know someone better that can help you. So it grew from just mathematics tutoring to all these other subjects. And then I would get asked, well, can you help me on the SAT? Can you help me on the PSAT? Can you help me on the GMAT? Can you help me on the GRE? Can you help me on the LSAT? So it grew from just tutoring to helping out on standardized test prep and doing workshops to help students be more proficient on those tests. And then teachers were wondering, well, I don't like math. How do I teach math? It grew again. And so that is how things start. So for me, it's just always been a place where things happen because they happen. Like I said, I had more energy back then. So now I've had to give up the professorship, and so I'm just primarily doing engineering and focusing on my business. So to bring this all back around, when that TEDx coordinator asked me to talk about cybersecurity, this is why I couldn't just say I am just cybersecurity. I couldn't, I put myself in too many categories. So now I call myself a quadruple E. As of January 2023, it used to be triple E until this year, January, it's quadruple E now. And these are what the E's stand for. Okay, so the first E is an engineer, because I am a cybersecurity department manager, and I've been doing engineering all throughout my career, either computer programmer, computer analyst. This next E is an educator, because I've been teaching or tutoring mathematics for over 30 years. The next E is an entrepreneur, because I took that passion and created a business called AMS Academic Solutions, and has grown it. And then my newest E is because I love alliteration, so I had to find an E that allowed me to do, and so that's elocutionist. So, and that's because I begrudgingly started speaking about STEM. So I am a quadruple E, and because of that fated TED Talk, 20 events later, 5 years later, here I am. Okay, so with all of these things that I've done, where I am now, how can I say that I have been invisible? Okay, so I'm glad you asked. So we're going to talk about this dreaded curse of invisibility. Okay, has anybody read this book, Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison? Oh, you've read it, yay. If not, you should go read it. I'm going to read you something for Britannica.com just to kind of whet your appetite. And so it says, Invisible Man is Ralph Ellison's only novel and is widely acknowledged as one of the great novels of African American literature. The invisibility of Ellison's protagonist is about the invisibility of identity, above all, what it means to be a Black man in its various masks, confronting both personal experience and the force of social illusions. The novel's special quality is its deft combination of existential inquiry into identity as such, what it means to be socially or racially invisible, with a more socio-political allegory of the history of the African American experience in America. The first-person narrator remains nameless, retrospectively recounting his shifts through the surreal reality of surrounding and people from the racist South to the no less inhospitable world of New York City. So, I read this book in college. Don't ask me about the details of this book. One day, I will do this. I will sit down and read it again for clarity instead of requirement, because when I read it the first time, it's because I was required to do so, and now I want to read it just for my own clarity. But even when I read it the first time, there were two distinct quotes that stood out to me, and I'm going to share the first one with you now. And I say this all the time when people ask me about invisibility. I usually stop at the first sentence, and I say, I am invisible simply because people refuse to see me. That is why and then you can read the rest of it, but that is why I considered myself at the time an invisible person. So as a former triple E, I have encountered this invisibility curse on numerous occasions. It has been a very frustrating journey and very discouraging, initially very discouraging. I knew I could analyze that data. I knew I could teach that high-level math subject. I knew I could provide services for that school, develop that computer code, suggest the mitigations to promote security of a system, solve that problem, but I often felt that I had to yell to be seen. It felt to me, in order to become visible and for others to realize what I could do, I had to perform some type of trick to entertain. and also to maintain someone's attention. Having to continually prove myself to remain visible in that spectrum. Okay? So I have given this presentation in some form over the past 5 years, and I often get this question. Why should I be bothered by this? Why do I feel special with this invisibility curse? Doesn't everyone have to prove themselves in some form or another? Where I feel that this curse is different for me and apparent in my life is in expectation. I felt that I was not expected to be seen, so no one was looking for what I could accomplish. And when I exceeded that expectation, people were normally surprised. It was not an expectation, but it was a fluke that I was smart in math. Just a blip on the radar, never to be seen again. This is what I tell people. When I get that question and the root, and therefore the dreaded fate of the curse of invisibility, lack of expectation. So how did this curse begin for me? And so I talk about this a lot, so I'm going to expound on this story that happened when I was in the 7th grade. Okay. It started with a biology class. Now I'm a smart person. That's not conceit. If you're smart, tell people that you're smart. There's nothing wrong with that. Very smart person, that's true. Learning was very easy for me. But when I was coming up, girls weren't allowed to be smart, especially smart in the subjects where I was smart in. We were okay to be cute. You can be cute and do the girly stuff. I was never a girly girl. I'm the oldest of 3 younger brothers. So I was never a girly girl, okay? But we weren't allowed to be smart, okay? So at that age, at that time, in my mind, as a young 12-year-old, I would have done anything to be seen as cute versus smart. I can distinctly remember making 100 on a biology test. I was so confident in that test, and this is the conceit of youth. I had these multicolored pencils, all these different colored pencils. And so when I took that test, I wrote the answers in a different color for every part of that test. That was how confident I was in taking that test. I studied really hard. I went and did that test, and I made 100. And I knew it, that I made 100 on that test. Well, the teacher that graded that test thought I cheated. And I had to prove that 100, jumping through a hoop, by taking the test again. It was not praised or accepted that I'd really studied hard and deserved that grade. It was concluded incorrectly that the only way that I could have received 100 was to have cheated. So I took the test again. This time, my cockiness, I just had the number 2 pencil. Does everybody remember number 2 pencil? You probably don't. One color. And guess what? I made another 100. And I thought in my mind, I'm gonna always make 100 on this test, no matter how many times you give it to me. But I was still looked at with suspicion, expectation. And the teacher had to begrudgingly accept that I made the 100 and they just refused to accept it. So in my 12-year-old mind, I knew that anytime you gave me that test, I was gonna make 100, no matter what you did. That was not gonna change. But that event left an impression on me. I mistakenly deduced that I was not supposed to be smart, since my intelligence was going to be questioned continually at every turn. Because of this fear of being constantly and frustratingly challenged, I began to hide my intelligence. I never made another 100. Not because I couldn't, because I knew I could, but I felt that I shouldn't. I would do just enough to get a good grade, but not too much to stand out. I made myself invisible, and the curse began. So, I'm gonna leave you with this tidbit, because I want people to learn. I did this for you, so you don't have to. So Alexis, tidbit number 1. What I say now is go ahead. Let them choose not to see you. Their purposeful blindness only exempts them for the benefits of who you are and what you have to offer. So don't limit yourself on anything. Another relevant encounter with this dreaded curse of invisibility happened a little bit later, okay? So I'd gone through middle school, I've gone through high school, and now I told you I was a college professor, okay? So many of the students could not see me being a college professor, especially of calculus, 1, 2, and 3, differential equations, which were my favorites to do at the time. I was always mistaken as a student and did not have the respect as a college professor. I was always challenged to solve problems and always met with surprise when those problems were solved and correct, continually performing a trick of solving equations. I didn't have the look of a typical college professor, and if you look at TV, you know what a stereotypical college professor looks like. So one time, I distinctly remember this, I was having a discussion with one of the students, and I noticed a student come in, he missed the first day of class, and I can see him in my peripheral vision, just waiting to talk to the professor while I was talking to this other student. And I could see him. And so when I finished talking to this one student, the students I knew that came in that missed the first day of class, he came in, he walked past me and went directly to the other student that I had been talking to and asking him questions that you would ask the professor. So what I did is I just stood back here and I smiled and I listened to the interchange that was going on, and he was asking them all the typical questions. If you missed the first day of class, what do you do when you go and ask the professor? And I just sat to the side and I waited. And probably 6 minutes, the student finally looked up and said, "Why are you talking to me about the class? The professor is right here. You need to be asking the questions of her." And so the student that had missed the first day looked up and he could not believe it. He refused to accept that I was the teacher of that calculus class. He thought it was a joke. Okay? He just would not believe it. So looking back on this, there were several things wrong in this scenario. Okay? The first one, the student made the assumption that I could not possibly be the one who could teach this class. Bad assumption. Number 2, the student made the assumption that I could not answer the questions he had about the course and the material. And then the most thing that was wrong in that scenario, and I hate to admit it, what was I thinking? Why did I allow that to continue? Why didn't I just correct him? That was easy. I could have corrected him. Why didn't I just correct the error when he initially approached? Why did I choose not to reveal myself? Why did I allow someone else to authenticate me versus authenticating myself? At that time, I was so engulfed in that invisibility curse that even though I could have quickly made myself visible, I chose not to. That was an early era in my career, and I found it amusing and took it for granted. Unfortunately, that would not be my last encounter like this in both the classroom and in the office. I never thought that one little 5 to 7 minute error would manifest itself into a continual theme throughout the positions I've taken in my life. So that's going to lead me to Alexis tidbit number 2. So I did all the work, so you don't have to. If we never correct others' errors of who we are, those errors will perpetuate throughout your lifetime. You have to take control of that. You have to make yourself visible. Otherwise, it's just going to continue. So, these first 2 examples were at early points in my life, but unfortunately, as mentioned, I've seen this invisibility curse throughout my professional career as well. Most of my career, I've been the only one or the only one of 2. This is early on. It's better now. I will tell you that it's better now. So, does everybody know what DE&I is before I tell you DE&I? Participation. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay. So, I was before DE&I. I was DE&I. I was the diversity, the equity, and the inclusion, because I was the only one or the one of 2. I have seen this invisibility curse in meetings, in the office, in conferences, or when the customer would come through. Typically, what you have seen, if you haven't seen it yet, there's a big table in the middle. There are chairs around the table on the edges. Typically, the women are sitting around the edge versus at the big table in the middle, because they don't want to be seen. Before, that's where I used to sit. I did not sit with the customer where I should have been sitting. I would sit along the peripheral on the edges. Certain derivatives of this invisibility curse are lack of respect and too much ambition. I have seen it with women in leadership positions, and like I said, more in the beginning when I was starting than now. It is better, it has improved, so I just want to say that. Where it's very difficult for women to be seen with just a basic level of respect. They are not seen as leaders. Many female leaders' ideas are questioned into futility, dismissed altogether, or even patronized. Women are forced into extreme measures. Either they have to raise their voice, they defer to their male counterparts, or they micromanage just to be seen. Just to be seen. If we raise our voices, we are characterized as frantic and too emotional, which then blurs us out of the spectrum. This causes others to ignore us even more. Like I said, we are not there yet, but we are much closer than what we were. We are being seen more because what are we doing? Women are establishing their own businesses. They're becoming CEOs of major companies. And so I look forward to the day when women in these leadership positions will no longer be viewed as an anomaly, a blip on the radar, but the norm. And we will be seen with the respect of these leadership positions that we deserve. The other derivative is ambition. Ambition is not a terrible thing. I feel like in that Wall Street movie, greed is good. So ambition is very good. If you haven't seen it, go stream it. However, sometimes on our journey to leadership, our ambition can be seen as something not desired and not taken seriously by others. Many times, women with an abundance of ambition can come across as intimidating or stereotyped as being too ambitious, blurred out of the vision, blurred out of the spectrum. They are only seen in a stereotypical way. A lot of times women have to choose. You can either be in the business or you can have a family. You can't do both. Where in some instances, men don't have to make that choice. Okay? So we got to move beyond the ambition stereotype. We got to let ambition allow us to be seen and that it's okay. It needs to be recharacterized as something positive versus the negative connotation it sometimes holds. Once that's done, ambition will be seen more as a goal to aspire to as opposed to being something shunned and ridiculed and a catalyst to invisibility. So I usually tell people I speak to, don't let your ambition make you invisible. Don't allow a lack of respect to cloud others' visions. Make yourself be seen. So we'll get to a nexus tidbit number 3. Be bold. It is okay. Your visibility will give light to others. Okay. So now I'm going to kind of talk to some of the statistics as I go through this in my journey through this invisibility. Does anyone remember the 2016, 2017 movie Hidden Figures and what it's about? So for me, when this movie came out, I refused to go see it. I just didn't think it was interesting. But a lot of my coworkers, a lot of my friends, a lot of my peers went and saw this movie before me, and they would come back and tell me, I saw this wonderful movie, and when I saw this movie, all those characters reminded me of you. And I mean people from different parts of my group in my circle that have never met each other, they would all come back and say, this movie reminded me of you. And so I said, well, let me go see this movie. So I went and saw this movie, and I cried throughout the entire thing because the women in this movie did remind me of myself. Everything that they went through in their journey, what was described in this movie, I had gone through. Everything, every slight, every questioning, everything that I saw in this movie, I myself had experienced. So I'd cry through the whole thing. However, when I got to my car after the movie was over, after the credits, and I sat in the car, and I was like, I got mad. And the reason I got mad at myself. And the reason I got mad at myself is, why did I not know about these women? Why did I not go and want to see this movie before people were telling me about this movie? So they were invisible to me. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I've blurred myself out in the visibility curse, and we have these women and they're invisible to me. And so that frustrated me. So what I did, and this is where I started, I went and looked up some statistics about people in STEM. And this was 2015, so this is when I first did this talk about people getting into the STEM fields. And so for 2015, we have this slide, and so I found a more recent slide. There are some improvement. However, the main catalyst is basically the same. So there are improvement for some groups, but for people of color, the numbers are alarmingly low. Okay, and so it says, although, and I'm just going to kind of read you some of the information that I have. It said, although women have reached some equality with men among the sciences and engineering, women's representation varies greatly by field, and women are still underrepresented. Hispanics or Latinos have gradually increased their share of these STEM degrees, while blacks or African Americans, American Indians, Alaska Natives have seen decline. So you can see by the numbers that even though we've made strides from 2015 to 2019, the numbers are still low. So I ask myself questions. I'm always asking myself questions. Even though we're making huge gains, why are the numbers so low with females? Why are the numbers so low with specifically females of color? Why are the numbers so low? And some of the things that I've noticed, and this is from the American Association of University Women, are some of the gaps that we see. So there are a lot of gender stereotypes. STEM fields are often viewed as masculine, and teachers and parents often underestimate girls' math abilities starting as early as preschool. Invisible. Male-dominated culture. Fewer women study and work in STEMs. These fields tend to perpetuate inflexible, exclusionary, male-dominated cultures that are not supportive of or attractive of women and minorities. Invisible. And this is 2019, so this is not old. This is not stuff when I started. These statistics and this information is what's going on now. Role models, Girls have fewer role models to inspire their interest in these fields. They don't see enough examples of female scientists and engineers in books, media, and popular culture. Invisible. And then my favorite. I have heard this so many times being a math tutor, math anxiety. I had a bad teacher in high school. I had a bad teacher in junior high. And now I'm in college level math and I can't learn it. There's just a block. The anxiety of learning math. Invisible. Okay. So another example that I have about this for the STEM gap and STEM girls is I was tutoring this young lady, and normally I start my tutoring sessions just trying to get a conversation going, and I asked her a couple of questions. I was like, where do you want to go to school? She's a junior, senior. I'm like, where do you want to go to college? What are your ideas? What do you want to do? What do you want to get out of our sessions? Oh, I just want the session so I can pass the class. I'm not going to college. I don't think I can go to college because I cannot learn math. Specifically, I cannot learn college level math. And I said, And so I asked her again, I'm like, so you're not going to go to college, you're not even going to try because you think you cannot do college level mathematics. She said, nope, I'm not. I can't do it. I'm not going to try. I know that I cannot do college level math. Therefore, I know you need that in college. I'm not going to do it. I said, So I asked her again because that's just me. I just keep asking just to make sure I heard correctly. So one more time, and I could tell she's getting irritated, but I'm going to ask again. So you are not going to college because you cannot do college level math. And she said, like, is she daft? I'm like, no, I'm not going to college because I can't do college level math. So I said, okay. So we proceeded with our tutoring session. And so we started out with some easy problems, and then she didn't understand at first, and then she began to understand. And then we started doing harder level problems, and she was just getting so excited that she was able to do these math problems. And she was just doing them. And after a while, I wasn't even helping her. I was just feeding her problems, and she would solve the problems. And she was just so excited. So towards the end of our session, because I know how I am, I asked her one more time. I say, you're not going to college? And she was just mad at me by this point, because she'd been doing really well. And she said, I am not going to college because I cannot do college level math. So in this instance, I stopped her. I said, you know what? You're not going to college. No, I'm not going to college because you can't do college level math. No, I cannot do college level math. Let me tell you this. for the past 15 minutes, guess what you've been doing? Guess what problems you have been solving on your own? These are problems I give my college level math students. And she could not believe it. She started to cry because she never thought in herself that she could do that college level math. And so I wonder, is this what's happening to some of our young girls? They get stuck in that pattern, expectation, of not being able to do things, and so they don't even try. So this is one example, but I have seen this in a lot of people that I have tutored. There is no representation. This is based on perceptions that they have accrued, and they want to stay hidden so as not to be exposed for what they can accomplish. They say I can't do it. They don't expect me to do it, so I will hide myself, become invisible, so that I will not be tasked to do it. So, main takeaway, where we are now, which one? 4, 5, number 4. I learned this for you guys, so you don't have to learn it. Don't limit yourself mentally to what you cannot do. This puts you on the path to invisibility, to yourself and to others. So I've talked about the curse. I've talked about the origins of the curse in my life. I've talked to you about where I've seen it in my life, where I've seen it in other people's lives and young girls' lives. So the obvious question is this: how do you break this curse? How do you break this curse of invisibility? Can it be done? And I'll tell you, yes, it can. For me, the way I broke the curse, it took an internal realization that I mattered and what I had to say and offer mattered. I had to learn not to sit idly by and wait to be acknowledged by someone else. I had to learn to acknowledge myself. Once I started acknowledging myself, many people also began to acknowledge me. Realizing that I deserve to be seen allowed me to throw off my coat and curse of invisibility and allow others to see me. I will tell you this, many days I am challenged, but what is different for me now is I stopped performing the trick. I stopped jumping through the hoops. I walk boldly in my intelligence that I used to hide before. And I let people know what I know without hesitation. Whatever blindness they have, that's not my responsibility if they're choosing not to see me. That's their responsibility. They're missing out. And they're going to miss out on what I have to offer. I never considered myself a leader. I had other plans, but I was always placed in situations where I had to lead. I had to accept it. I had to walk into that exposing light, illuminating all the brilliance that I am. So the curse of invisibility, once I started making that realization, it could not hide me anymore. I was shining too bright. And that's what you have to do. So, breaking the curse, be confident in your abilities and your decisions to be in whatever STEM field you choose. Now, I talk about STEM because that's my passion, but you can X out STEM and say whatever field that you choose. It does not matter. Don't ever second guess yourselves. Don't fall into the invisibility trap of math anxiety or blank anxiety or blank stereotype. Some people are assumed to belong in a field and others are assumed not to. Don't fall for that. Know what you know. You deserve to be seen and act accordingly. Do not surrender to that curse of invisibility. Shine your light. You don't have to prove anything. Don't jump through the hoop. Be bold. Do not shy away from where you excel, especially if these are things that you're typically not supposed to excel in. Before I took off my cloak of invisibility or got rid of the curse, I never embraced the knowledge that I had. I took it for granted. I don't do that anymore. I'm bold. When I said before, it's okay to be smart, acknowledge that. It's okay. I say this for young women, and I'll say it for young men too. A lot of times, being bold, they feel that they have to stay, you can only be bold in one thing. No, you can be bold in as many things that you want to be bold in, and it's okay. Make your own path. Do your own thing. You don't not have to be in one part of your box. Embrace the gifts that are given to you. Again, it took me so long, so I went through it so you don't have to embrace my gift. I often shied away from it. Now I walk boldly, and I dare people not to see me. I enjoy teaching math, and I'm good at it. I enjoy being a cybersecurity department manager. I'm good at it. It's okay. That's not conceit. That is what I'm good at. So I'm too bright. I can't be under the invisibility curse. And finally, no fear. Being invisible allows you to hide. Don't. There are people out there that you don't even know that are waiting for the opportunity to see what you have to offer. They need your light. Don't be afraid. Okay. So when I began, I talked about Invisible Man, and I told you there were 2 quotes. So I'm going to give you the second quote now. Okay. And so this is also from The Invisible Man. It says, I was looking for myself and asking everyone except myself questions for which I and only I could answer. It took me a long time and much painful boomeranging of my expectations to achieve a realization everyone else appears to have been born with, that I am nobody but myself. So my final takeaway for you guys today is, this is a picture. I was standing on a cliff in San Diego, just looking out on the water. When you throw off your curse of invisibility or your cloak of invisibility, you realize that your main superpower is just being exactly who you are. So everyone, shine brightly and be seen.
So as a way to say thank you to this bright star, Alexis Scott, let's give her another round of applause. MPC, we want to say thank you for sharing your words. Thank you for sharing your story. And we hope that you'll come back and see us again soon. So this is a gift from the Women in STEM Club. It's their MPC Women in STEM logo. Here's flowers. And then just to make sure that you're repping MPC in Texas, you got your bag with a few goodies.
Oh, thank you very much.
We wanted to give an opportunity, if it's okay with you, to give people here an opportunity, our audience, to ask questions. If they had any, I have a mic, so if anybody has a question that they'd like to ask Alexis.
Thank you. You were so bold as to start speaking and give that TED Talk, so I'm going to be bold and ask a question. So, my sense is that you became an elocutionist because A, you were brave and entrepreneurial and communicative and got seen. right? My sense is that you were entrepreneurial because you were so good at what you were doing as an educator. And that you were an educator because you were so good at what you did as a cybersecurity expert. What was the key to getting you into STEM in the first place?
I think I was always into STEM. So I mean, it just always started because I was always good with numbers and putting puzzles together, and it's just kind of naturally progressed to that. And then I started out with math, and then the computer programming, the analysis work with the radar data with MIT. And I'll say this, I'm aging myself again, we didn't call it STEM back then, so I think I was always just into that STEM field, always into the sciences.
I just wonder if you feel like I do, that there's a huge divide in students. And I think it happens in high school, that you get to this place where you call it math anxiety, but kids go, I just can't do it. Like you're in a math class, everybody else answers faster than you, and you turn off and you step back. And I just wonder, why didn't you step back, right? Why didn't, all of us that are in STEM, what made the difference for us, and how can we do that for our students?
For some reason, I just kept going, and unfortunately, it's not high school. It happens. I've seen it middle school. It happens just with a lot of the young girls, because a lot of times, if you go back and do kind of the research, elementary school, everybody is on the same kind of playing level. Is right when we get to the seventh, 8th grade, where it kind of diverges off, and it took me a long time to continue, but I just continued with something that I enjoyed doing. I should say this, it took me a long time to appreciate it, and to continue. But then I just knew it was a way for me to move forward and a way for me to grow. I didn't appreciate it as much as I appreciate it now.
Hi, my name is Lupita Arroyo. I just want to say you're very bold. You have 4 roles. That's amazing. One of my questions is, who was part of your support group transitioning from all of these different life events that you had? So who was that support group for you, whether it was your parents, siblings, colleagues? So I'm just interested in that support group.
All of the above. So. I had a lot of very good mentors and a lot of my college professors. I had a lot of mentors in the workforce that just kind of promoted me and kept me moving forward. I had a physics, I'm not good at physics, but I had a physics person. I did an internship, and she was she's passed away, but she was very instrumental in me continuing and moving forward. One instance was I was speaking at the National Science Foundation, and I sent her a message and said, I'm going to be doing this. And lo and behold, when I spoke, she was in the audience, and that was just so encouraging. I didn't expect her to be there, but I mean, things like that. So it's just a lot of people in my circle that I sought out or sought me out that I've kind of leaned on.
I have a question back here, and I see your hand.
Hi, my name's Joanne, and so just listening to your story has really touched me, because growing up, I was told my whole life all I was ever going to be was somebody's wife and have their children, and I'm 38 now, and I have been choosing a very hard path, which is STEM. And I've tried to do it while having babies. It's not the easiest. But I have to say, listening to you, I was actually really close this semester to giving up. But now listening to you, thank you. I think you've given me new hope and made me realize it doesn't matter how long it takes to get there, just keep going. Mm-hmm. And because it's my dream, and I guess I don't want to give up, and I don't want people in my situation to ever look back and regret it. And I think that's what I want to do, and I think you're my new hero. So thank you.
And I will say this, don't give up. Everybody's situation is different. Stick with your passion here, and things will make a way. Because I'll just say, on my journey, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a photographer. I wanted to be a CPA. I wanted to do da-da-da-da-da. But I had to learn and it be an acceptance of what my passion was and to move forward in that passion and understand, don't put yourself in a box. You can do whatever you put your mind to, make it your own, make it work for you.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to thank you for that story you told, because I was that girl that said that I couldn't go further because I couldn't do math. So I got into college, and I graduated with an AA degree. That was as far as I was going to go. Couldn't do the college math. Well, I decided, well, I'm going to try it, and I'm going to get as far as that, jump out. And I started school, and we had to do a presentation that had to do with the math that we had. I graduated from Chapman University. And as I was doing the math, I was crying the whole time. My classmates was calling me because I look like I'm smart in the class. And they don't know I've been crying and praying because I don't know none of this. I didn't even take algebra in high school. So I'm way off. And I'm like, just pray. I tell them, just pray. Put your hands up and pray. So when the presentation came, I said, I don't know. God gave me this presentation because I can't do it. And when I did my presentation, my professor said, I have never been able to teach this class for them to learn, but the way you did it, I did it totally different the way she said to do it. She said, I want you to tell me how you did it, because I'm going to teach the class how to do the math that way. And so here I am doing math. That encouraged me. I went on and got my BA degree, and I am the first in my family that holds a master's degree.
One more?
So hi, I'm Carla. I'm the internship coordinator here. I work closely with Herbert Cortez. My question is, what advice would you give students that want to do a STEM internship? Like, how would you encourage them to pursue a STEM internship?
So the first thing, LinkedIn is your friend. And I say this, get on LinkedIn, wherever you want to do your internship and see people that are in the field that you, and reach out to them, number one. Number two, Google is your friend. Go and Google. A lot of these companies have internship programs and they post that information online. Go out there and look for those companies and apply for those internships. College Campus is a friend. They reach out to the college campuses, and normally the Career Center, they have information on internship. But I mean, there's so many different ways that you can, you know me, I'm a manager. So I can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I can point you into a direction for internships in my company, and that's just basically how it starts.
I'll reach out to you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I want to just say, if you're interested in STEM internships, reach out to Herbert, because we are going on steroids with internships. Reach out to Russia Turner, who's getting us into internships at UC Santa Cruz. We are looking for every possibility to put people in paid internships, not one that you're working for free for 3 months. So we really want to give you that experience and to share experience. Oops. Is there anything else? Any other questions? The mic is coming.
I would just like to say, when you talked about like math anxiety, that was like where I was like, that's me. Because in primary school already, people were like, oh yeah, she gets distracted super easily. She can't get her math done. Like she's always, browsing off and doing something else. So I was always told I really suck at math and I will just never get it done. And they like predicted me to not get a good high school education, like not finish my high school education because I was really bad at math. So even when I came here to MPC, I still had that kind of mindset or that fear in my head. And then I had to take chemistry, and I was like, this is gonna be so hard. Like, I was so scared, and it really threw me off, and I just didn't give up, right? And I also have to give kudos to Russia. Like, I wouldn't have done this without her, so kudos to her. But yeah, it's really just about not giving up, and I think that's the message that you helped me internalize, because it's like, I did the work, I didn't give up, like I would spend 5 hours on chemistry homework, barely hanging on, but being like, you can get through this some way, right? Like, it'll get easier and easier. And that's how I managed to stay on that path, because I know nutrition is my passion. I know nutrition requires chemistry, and you can't have one without the other, right? So you have to take yourself out of that box. Like, I can't do math, and be like, I will be able to do math one way or another, because I know my passion requires me to do that, right? So I think that's a big takeaway that I got from you, and I just want to appreciate you for that. Thank you.
I just want to thank you on behalf of the college and our community for you spending time with us, and we appreciate that so much. And I also want to thank our audience for being such a great audience, and I think we've all learned a lot and have a lot to think about, but be bold. I love it. Thank you.